Lecture 4, Language. What is language? Language is a structured system of symbols used for communicating meaning. Symbols are that which represents or stands for something else. The process of communication involves using words to help create meanings and expectations. However, as important as words are in representing and describing objects and ideas, the meaning of a verbal message is not stamped on the face of the words we use. Meanings are in people, not in words. I'm going to say that again because it's very, very important when trying to understand language. Meanings are in people, not in words. Meanings are unique. You have your meaning, and other people have theirs. How does language work? We use something called the triangle of meaning to explain how language works. Basically, there's a triangular relationship between words, things, and thoughts. Words being the symbols that we use to represent things, which are the stimulus or representation of these words. But the only relationship between the two are the thoughts that exist in people's minds. We see this dotted line here on the bottom. For some reason, this PowerPoint switch maybe doesn't read the font well. But this dotted line should be directly under the triangle here. And you have that dotted line to show that there is no direct relationship between words and things, except for, as I said, what's in people's thoughts. When you use words, you must constantly remind yourself that the only relationship between words you use and the things they represent are what exists in people's thoughts. And that's including your own. Now, meanings are both denotative, which means the dictionary meaning. Okay? It's objective or descriptive meaning for a word. And meanings are also connotative. That's now your subjective meaning for a word, a person's personal meaning for a word. Elements in the meaning are number one, time. A definition is not attached to a word forever. When we consider words like bad and gay and sharp, okay, those words did not mean the same things during different time periods. Place. Meanings change from one part of the country to another. For example, in the Midwest and some parts of the South, people refer to soft drinks, uh, carbonated soft drinks, as pop, versus in the Northeast, and really along the Northeast Corridor, they more so refer to carbonated soft drinks as soda. And number three is experience. Experience influences the meanings that you assign to words. For instance, the word cancer, there's a different experience for a doctor versus a statistician versus a patient. When we use language, we must be mindful of the power of words. Be mindful not to abuse language. So you want to stay away from defamation, harmful words to people that could have devastating effects, profanity, offensive language, and hate speech, which is profanity with hurtful purpose. In the end, to improve your language, you want to number one, use your common sense. Be aware of the conditions and circumstances that can affect your usages of language and words. Number two, you want to own your thoughts and your feelings. So when you're speaking with people, and particularly when you are in, argumentative type situations, you want to use I statements instead of you statements. So you want to say things like, I'm angry instead of you make me mad. Number three, you want to separate opinions from factual claims. Now, facts are verified with evidence and they show and prove to be true or false. For example, I live in the United States. Opinions, on the other hand, express personal judgment or preference, but they're not true or false in an absolute sense. So if you say I live in the greatest country, that may be true for you, but it may not be true for someone else who doesn't think the country you live in is the greatest. Someone else may think the country they live in is the greatest. It's opinion. Number four is use clarity, okay? Understandable language. You want to use words geared to the educational level of your listeners, and you want to keep jargon to a minimum unless your receiver is schooled in the jargon. So if you're giving a speech to a bunch of technical people, uh, at a technology convention, you can go ahead and use all of the jargon that you really would like to do. However, if you are not, then you want to keep that jargon to a minimum because remember, we said that it's information that everybody in the society or the group, rather, the co culture group may not know. Everybody who is not in that group may not know what that jargon means. So remember, you're trying to share meaning, you're trying to transfer a meaning when you're communicating. You want the person to get the message that you're trying to deliver. So you want to make sure that you keep jargon to a minimum. Guidelines for developing language skills. Number one, you want to identify how labels affect your behavior. Number two, you want to identify how the words you use affect your feelings and your attitudes. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about those words? And how do you think somebody else is going to feel about them when you use them with that person? You want to identify how experience can affect meaning because different people have different experiences. And we're going to find out when we talk about perception is that perception is reality. What people think Okay, it's what they believe. It may not be true, but they think it and they believe it. So for them, it is their truth. And you want to be sure that meanings are shared. As I said before, that's the whole purpose of communication, sharing of meanings, transfer meanings. And that concludes Lecture 4 on language.